Hello, hello. I have no idea if anyone can hear me, so hopefully someone can. Also, these headphones aren't doing much for me, so I have no idea if I'm actually live, but if I am, great. Hi. No one's here anyway, so I'm just talking to myself as I test out going live because I bought a new webcam just to see if this would work. I'll take these off until someone does something. Um, but I bought a new webcam because the last webcam that I owned, I bought in like 2007 or 2008, so it's way out of date. And I thought, yeah, maybe I'll just buy a 4K webcam and then I can do live stream sometimes. Because right now it's either I film like unboxings and then I edit those together, or I do the audio only like Leninhawk ones and that's more just because it's a little bit easier. There's not as much to edit. I just kind of like put them in my record, and then I put up some pictures and la di da. But if I just want to like fire off something that's a little extemporaneous or whatever, then you can see me live here. This is my office. This is where I work from home, and this is where some of my stuff is stored. So I got David A.R. White from a standee for God's Not Dead 3 that I took from the theater back when I was a manager there. Got a Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks, got some Mr. Robot there, Funko Pops, and all that good stuff. Twin Peaks rug, you can kind of see a little bit below me. But that's the kind of stuff that I have in here and my apartment. So something I wanted to talk about, or things that I was going to talk about, um, like a probably a Lennon Hawk talk anyway, but I might as well talk here because even though there's nobody here, this will eventually just be a pre-recorded video on my channel that people can watch at their leisure. Was sort of the weirdness of limited releases that are going on now with independent films or whatever. So it's back in the before times, the pre-COVID times. Platform releasing kind of always went in the same or similar fashion, where a movie might open up in either just New York and LA as like the main markets, or they might open in like the top 10 markets, which includes Chicago and some other places, and then they might slowly roll it out over like 2 to 3 weeks before they have a wide release. At that point, wide release being defined here as maybe 1,000 screens, maybe 1,500 screens, something like that. So that worked pretty well. It sucked if you didn't live in a major market and you were into independent films or just Oscar bait films or things like that, because then you had to wait for them to finally get down to your market if you don't live in any of the big cities. Back when I lived in Rhode Island, we did have one art house theater called the Avon, but there was a couple others. I think there was the Columbus and some other stuff, the cable car cinema. But for the most part, we usually didn't get anything until 2, 3 weeks after, because Providence, Rhode Island, isn't a major market. I don't even think Boston's that major of a market, to be quite honest. Down here, where I am in North Carolina, it's a little bit easier, but also the market has completely changed for limited releasing, as I'll go into. Um, so that was basically, yeah. You open up in the major cities, and the critics and the people who write entertainment reviews, back when it was not as internet based, when it was newspapers and periodicals and stuff, they would be able to see it and they push out their reviews, and if they were well, then you'd have a little bit of a boost from critical word of mouth. And then because they're only in a tiny amount of theaters, you would have these big per screen averages, like, oh, it's making like $20,000 per screen, like stuff that you don't see when something's in wide release. And so it gives you the aura of success. And then beyond that, they expand it further as word of mouth. People get to see it if people do like it, and then by the time it opens wide, people are like, "Oh, well, I've heard about this movie for weeks. I have to see it." So it's sort of part of the marketing campaign. Then COVID, as it did with everything, it completely messed things up. So what happens now? Well, there's been a few movies that have still followed the traditional platforming opening, and some of those have done well. Licorice Pizza, for instance, I think that spent like 2 to 3 weeks in the major cities, New York and LA. Um, I think it also projected at 70 millimeter in some of those theaters before it got a wide release, and that seemed to work out pretty well for that. It could have made more money. It could have had more success Oscar wise or whatever. There was some backlash about some story elements of that, and one character who does like a racist Asian accent, even though the movie's not endorsing what he's doing. It's he's the butt of the joke there. Um, but you've seen that. But lately, everything's been a little topsy turvy with this, where independent films, because they tend to skew, or art, maybe I should say art house films as opposed to independent films, because Terrifier 2 is technically an independent film, and that did very well, but that's not the type of film I'm talking about in this case when we're talking about um, independent films in this sense. So I'm taking more about art house films, awards bait films, stuff like that. But it seems like now, because those films tend to skew older, and it's the older demographics that aren't coming out to the movies as often. Like, sure, they came out for Top Gun Maverick and a couple other movies here and there, but they're not coming out as often as they would. Or Ticket to Paradise, I guess they came out for too. Crawdads, some of the ones that are skewing a bit more older female. Um, so with that happening, it's not creating the same buzz. Like you'll get the push of um, positive reviews, but you're not getting any really word of mouth there because just certain people are seeing it, and then it's not in the public zeitgeist so when it opens wide. And because a few months ago we were still a little bit of a ways out. We're like in the foot of award season now, November, December, but back in August, September when some of these movies are opening, not so much. So a few movies are taking weirdly different tactics with this, and I'm not sure what the studios are trying to do with some of them because the studios they basically want two things to happen. They want awards for their movie and they want to turn a profit on the budget. So they're looking for money and they're looking for accolades. And so their strategies are probably trying to get to the point where they can get the most of those. They can get the most of the awards and the most of the accolades. And so you have some movies that are still opening fairly traditionally in this limited release pattern. You have Banshees of Inisherin that opened in the major markets for like a week or two, and then it slowly expanded to like 600 screens and everything like that. In fact, I don't think Banshees ever expanded into wide release being defined here as over 1,000 screens. But then you have stuff like Fablemans, which is a really confounding, confusing release pattern where um, Universal put it out in limited release in the major cities, and then they eked it out a little wider to 650 screens or so, and they've just never put it in wide release. And the thing's going to be on VOD in like 3 days. I think it comes on VOD on Tuesday, and so it's a little weird where I don't get what exactly they're trying to do with that. It's not going to make money, and it's just sort of like petering out slowly in this limited release. Um, but then you have stuff like Bones and All, which had like 1 week in limited release and then went mega wide at like over 2,000 screens, and that's not a really mainstream movie. I know like Timothy Chalamet has his fan base and everything, but that's not the film that really should be opening that wide that fast. Phrasing. And I'm not sure either the studios know these movies aren't going to make money, so they're just pushing it out there for contractual reasons, or just trying to grab as much money as possible as they can in a short period of time before pumping it to VOD and expecting to get most of their money that way, or they think that that is better for the awards. And I think it's more like the money thing. I think they're with Bones and All, maybe they were just afraid of death by a thousand cuts. That if they keep opening slowly and slowly and slowly, you're just going to peter out a finite amount of people that want to see it. Um, but with Fablemans, I think there's more of an audience for that because it's a little bit more mainstream as far as this coming of age family drama type thing. Now, granted, it's about Spielberg specifically, and so its core audience is going to be like film buffs and people who like Spielberg, so Spielberg fans and people of like that. And so it's not necessarily aimed at the average person. It's aimed at like audiences like me and other film buffs. And if you end up watching this later, one person popped in and then they disappeared. So I don't think anyone's going to come in there. So this is basically just a test Leninhawk talk to make sure this works. Um, so I think that movie Fablemans has an opportunity to be a little better financially, but Universal's just not doing that. But maybe Universal's just decided this movie doesn't have any mainstream appeal, really, so we're just gonna, open it in theaters, push it on VOD, and then just hope the awards come, and then we can open it wide after awards. Like maybe they'll have it simultaneously on VOD and in theaters for a while, and then assuming it picks up, Oscars or Golden Globes or whatever, then they'll finally open it wide because people will have heard about it and they're basically relying completely on the awards as their marketing budget. Because I'm a cord cutter and I don't have regular TV, I don't know how much a lot of these. That's my notification I didn't turn off. I don't know how much of these um, commercials are coming out or how much of the normal marketing is out there for it. Like, I know if a movie's advertising on YouTube because I'll get annoying ads before I watch YouTube videos, and obviously I see trailers when I'm in theaters and things like that. But I don't know how much they're marketing on like Lifetime Television or the Hallmark Channel or Freeform or any normal cable or terrestrial television. So that's, I don't know how much they're doing with that. But it is weird to look at the different individual movies and how they are pushing those toward their release patterns. And then you have ones that are sort of like mini major things, like the Menu, which is technically is, from the art house label of its Searchlight, which used to be Fox Searchlight. So technically, it's a mini label under Disney. But they pushed that with a wide release, and it's doing fairly decent numbers. And Searchlight's going to be making a movie with Taylor Swift in a couple of years or whatever. So I don't know. I just thought that was a weird topic I was going to bring up, and if anybody came in, but no one is, so we could talk about that a little bit more. What else can I talk about? Because this is just a test, so I probably won't go for too long. It seems to be working fine now. The big question is audio because I can't hear myself through the headphones or anything. So I might just be talking and nobody can hear me, in which case this has been a huge fail and I have to figure something out. And then this is all just a waste of time. And I've just been babbling for nothing. But if this comes out, then, we'll see. Let's see. Well, maybe I'll just end it there because I've just babbled and I've tested for like almost 13 minutes, and we'll just see how that works. And then from there, I know whether or not this will work down the road. Yeah. So I see a little button come up. All right. Well, thanks for watching my little test after the fact. And if this did work, then I can pre-plan things and give people more of a head time in the future, so that my core audience of 30 people will know to come here. It's funny. I have like 2,800 or something subscribers, but most of them came out when back like years ago when I did the fucking YouTube reviews and everything, or the Goosebumps reviews rather. And I guess they just didn't unsubscribe after I stopped doing that. So the people who are interested in Vinegar Syndrome unboxings and me prattling on about the Alamo Draft House and movie release schedules is not as big. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will take what happened here and go forward in a better way. But thanks everybody. Bye.